Yeah, he had a great run at San Antonio this year with Snorlax, Pidgeot Control. Just outside of the top 8, though, got top 16. But in the last season, his first season, his rookie season as a Master, did come away with a top 8 finish in Arlington, Texas. But this is without a doubt his crowning achievement as a Masters player to this point, and it is with Charizard EX, a deck which I think many players expected to be extremely popular after Tord Reklev's win last weekend.
Yeah, Tord Reklev's win was pretty iconic, and then Liam trying to follow that up with an almost identical version of Tord's list. But on the other side, we have Jake Ewart with a nice set of accolades as well. World State 2 in 2018, not an easy feat. A top 4 at Madison Regionals and a top 64 at Collinsville, but now boasting at least a finalist placement in Orlando.
And he is playing the brand new Ancient Box deck, utilizing the new Roaring Moon with that Vengeance Fletching attack. 70 damage plus 10 more for each Ancient card in your discard pile. These players have fought long and hard to get to this point, but only one of them can come away with the medal. Only one of them will be crowned the regional champion. Will it be Liam or will it be Jake? Prize cards now being played out for these players, and already a rough start there. 3 one-ups in Liam's first 4 prizes. Radiant Charizard, Prime Catcher, and the Roxanne.
And 3 very key cards in this matchup, right, Chip? Radiant Charizard, a very powerful single prize attacker that you want to use to affect your opponent's prize mapping. Roxanne, a powerful disruption card. And Prime Catcher, the best costing effect in the game.
On Jake's end, it's not nearly as bad, but 2 Darkness Energy in the prize cards could be potentially a little problematic. Jake does only play 6 Darkness Energy, so will only have 4 available to power up his Roaring Moons as attackers. I'm excited, Pablo. I'm sure our players are excited. I'm sure our audience out in the crowd is excited. Here we go, our Masters Division final match.
The crowd goes wild, Chip, as we see that Flutter Mane. We do see Liam going first with a very good start.
What an opening.
Battle VIP pass or Buddy Puff, and we just have all your basic Pokemon ready to go.
Starts the Charmander, has another one, and the Pidgey in hand, and the Rotom to boot. Instant charge, adding 3 more cards to Liam's hand. The perfect opening, if you ask me, Pablo. Jake on the other side does open up that Flutter Mane, something that is really powerful in certain matchups. Midnight Fluttering can shut down the abilities of key Pokemon in the format, namely Comfey with its powerful ability, but not super strong in this matchup. Perhaps if Liam had chosen to start the Rotom V, would have been kicking himself a little bit, would not have been able to use Instant Charge, but with it on the bench, it was safely able to draw those extra cards.
Oh, certainly, Chip. Now, one funny interaction that could happen is if for some reason Liam mistakenly evolved the active Charizard EX, then you wouldn't be able to attach those energies, right? I'm sure Liam is very aware of that and will not be making that mistake. But I did see it a couple of times when I was walking down the aisle yesterday. So it can happen, a small oversight you're not used to, because that Flutter Mane has a very unique ability in Midnight Fluttering.
Jake utilizing his Stadium of Choice Pokestop, discarding the top 3 cards from his deck, will add any item cards found there to the hand, will discard a Fire Energy and a Darkness Energy, but in favor of finding an Ultra Ball. We'll see if Jake can piece together what he needs in order to get a turn 1 attack, or is he even going to go for it? Looks like the answer is no.
Yeah, I think a pretty reasonable Pokestop there. Accessing your energies that way leaves them perfectly available for the Professor Sada, and when you prize 2 of those, then you really want to make the best use out of it. But I think Jake's priority right now is stabilizing and building up to those big numbers with a very high count of ancient cards in the discard pile.
It definitely makes sense. Was able to find the Earthen Vessel. This will add a couple of those energy cards to the hand. A great way to find your energies when you have multiple in the prize cards. Jake will discard 1 card from hand in order to grab 2 basic energy from the deck. Now he does have an Ultra Ball in the hand, actually 2 Ultra Ball right now. Does he utilize that to get down another Pokemon, or will he be content with this board for now?
I think it's definitely very worth it to establish that Greninja, give yourself more resources. You need to access pretty much your whole deck if you want to try to take down a Charizard EX with your Vengeance Fletching. So very important to dig through the deck. And you know, getting rid of that penny, this is a very different deck than the one you faced the round before. You're going to want to just be aggressive, and every single turn there's going to be a Pokemon going down. So your priority is just powering them up and replacing them rather than picking something up.
We will see the Pokegear being put to the discard pile, and now the Radiant Greninja discards a card, drawing 2 more. It's a pair of Supporters Found, another Explorer's Guidance, and a Boss's Orders. Could be nice to be aggressive potentially next turn. Jake was not able to pull off the turn 1 attack, but has a pretty solid board, is content to just pass things over back to Liam. Liam will take a moment here to check the discard pile for Jake, taking stock of how many ancient cards are in the discard pile, also just what resources Jake utilized on the last turn. And Liam has a pretty solid hand here. Plenty of cards available thanks to Rotom, and also that Buddy Poffin.
Plenty of cards, so I'm not sure there's a rare candy Charizard to start the aggression here, so that could be a little problematic. When you're up against a single price deck, no matter what you're playing, you know you're essentially in a timer-based game. You want to attack at least 6 times to finish the game, and if anything delays your first attack, that's another 6 turns and gives your opponent a little bit more time to stabilize as well. So we'll see what the Buddy Poffin finds here. Probably a couple more Charmanders, maybe 1 Charmander and 1 Pidgey. But if there's no rare candy Charizard, this extra turn that Liam's not going to have, or that Jake's going to have rather, could be very important. I don't see anything of substance here for Liam.
Yeah, that's pretty tough. There's so many cards that could have gotten him what he needs. Arven is the main one, right? It's so powerful in this deck, getting you an item card and the tool card. Of course, mostly grabbing out the Forest Sealstone. Now, Liam could get a little risky here, go with the Pokestop in order to try to draw into maybe something like an Ultra Ball, something like a rare candy. But is that a risk worth taking?
Oh, I'm not so sure, because even the Ultra Ball finding Luminion, I mean, that could be important. Oh, no!
Yeah, let's hope that Liam isn't going to try to use Instant Charge here.
Yup, because
I think he just realized, he just smirked a little bit. I think he realized that he's not able to utilize Rotom V right now.
Okay.
Or maybe he had this in mind all along.
Yeah, I mean, definitely possible. The Rotom is out of range of the Vengeance Fletching, and he also has the Professor Turo to potentially absorb a hit on the Rotom. So, all right. Maybe Liam had this planned all along.
Yeah, this could be really strong because it'll do a few things, right? It eats up a turn of attacking effectively from Jake and makes one of his attackers basically useless, right? If the Rotom doesn't even go down and then you knock out whatever attacked into it, it's a lot of resources expended from Jake's end for very, very little value.
That is true, but relying on that Professor Tour, I mean, I guess you don't have to play it this turn,
yes,
but
true.
It would stop you from playing the Arven as well. So, and there's also the possibility that Jake just gets enough cards. It's not easy, but it is possible, and apparently already at 9 ancient cards, that's 160 damage chip already. 3 more, and we could get there.
Yeah, and it's not super unlikely. There is the Awakening Drum in Jake's hand. I think the only debate here is it worth it for him to put down this Koraidon? Not a super strong attacker in this matchup. Can be nice to maybe target down some of the low HP Pokemon, maybe go after Bibarel once that comes into play. Is it worth drawing that 1 extra card with the Awakening Drum? Looks like the answer is yes. +1 to the discard pile. There is the Earthen Vessel. I think Jake is going to be 1 card short here.
1 card short, exactly, Chip. Can put 2 more in the discard pile. Can still draw with Radiant Greninja, right?
Actually, is this it, right? There was 9, then the Awakening Drum, 10, 2 more here.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
I think
that's 12.
Yeah, is going to get him there. That's going to be 19, exactly 19 damage being placed onto the Rotom V. Liam, not super pumped to see that that was the find from Jake. Has the energy to retreat this active Greninja, also can still draw some cards.
I have to wonder if that retreat was on purpose or not with the boss, but that Rotom V seems like it's gonna go down. And wait,
Ooh.
Ooh.
Going to be just short, not wanting to take the prize card just yet, potentially.
And then why would you retreat before concealed cards?
Yeah, going to be an interesting call here. I believe would have had the knockout, 12 ancient cards in the discard pile, plus the 70 damage base from the Vengeance Fletching. That adds up to 90. Jake will just pass. Liam perhaps catching a break.
Yeah, Liam definitely catching a break. I mean, you are stopping another Rotom ability with your Flutter Mane, but Liam already has the 3 cards from the previous turn. Now we'll be able to go Rare Candy Charizard and start the offensive. If you get 2 prizes ahead before your opponent has even taken a prize card as the Ancient Box, you're feeling really good. But Jake prioritizing having a more stable board and allowing Liam to have the initiative.
Rare Candy, Pidgeot EX, quick search online, the lifeblood of this Charizard deck. Now able to find any card turn after turn after turn. Rare Candy grabbed now for Liam. This will get this attacking Charizard EX online. Even has the Forest Sealstone in excess to potentially utilize to get any other card out. Wouldn't hate to see Bibarel come down. Charmeleon potentially also an option here. But Liam is not necessarily forced to use the Forest Sealstone. Could potentially save it for later.
Oh, definitely could save it. Now Jake is holding that Lost Vacuum, which could be impactful. Doesn't even need to play it though, as he probably knows at this point there's no hand disruption available for Jake. However, we are going to see it being used immediately, so that's going to be fine. I'm guessing Jake favored just having a flow of Roaring Moons, giving up 1 prize card, giving up this initiative, just to make sure that he's putting pressure and being able to keep up with the Charizards that Liam is going to be setting up.
Yeah, jumping ahead with the 2 prize cards is nice and all, but it doesn't do much for you if you miss an attack in a future turn. So Jake perhaps playing a little more defensively here, and maybe wisely so. Even with Liam taking this prize card, jumping ahead, Jake is going to try to ensure that he can always 2-hit KO a Charizard and then potentially close out the game by knocking out the Rotom V at the very end of the game, or potentially 1-hit KOing a Charizard EX, though that will be a lot to get to.
That is a very big ask, as you mentioned, but yeah, by not taking down that Rotom, you also make yourself less vulnerable to a potential return KO plus an Iono, which can be problematic for these sort of decks. So until you have a much more stable board, Jake favoring having the back-to-back attacks if or when possible.
This also allows Jake to play something like Explorer's Guidance this turn, not forced into playing the Sada. This can allow him to dig for the energy attachment from the hand, potentially. And then next turn, you don't even necessarily have to play a Sada.
4 ancient cards going to hit the discard pile, Chip. That's going to be 17 cards in the discard now with the ancient feature. That's going to be 230 damage, 10 away from a potential one-shot. You're fine only doing a 2-shot for now, but eventually you'd want to get to a 1-shot as Pokestop draws 3 cards for Jake.
Jake has 29 ancient cards in his deck list. Nearly 50% of his deck is made up of this ancient archetype, these ancient cards. And he will need 26 of them in the discard pile if he hopes to 1-hit KO a Charizard EX at some point in the game. He's content taking a 2-hit knockout here. It's still a favorable prize trade for him. Will he be able to sneak in a knockout on something like the Rotom? Maybe even the Pidgeot is a little easier to KO. You can get through that with just 21 ancient cards in the discard pile. And honestly, that's a number that we're nearing at an alarming rate.
Yeah, and not taking a knockout on the Rotom also keeps your counter catchers available to be used right now. So
true, that's a great point. Honestly, maybe that's the best point and best argument to not take the Rotom KO, so that you have access to counter catcher for longer in this game.
Indeed. So, I mean, clearly Jake, as he was preparing for Orlando Regionals, had to have played this matchup plenty of times, so he obviously knows exactly what he's doing. And yeah, we're about to see a big attack on this Charizard, setting up the 2-hit KO, looking to establish more Roaring Moons. And wow, Jake's deck running very dangerously low at this point.
We are on turn 3 of the game, by the way. Turn
like
3 of the game.
7 cards left?
Yeah, Jake has churned through this deck. Now, Liam is an extremely smart player, and he is already taking note of resources. We see him doing it right now. If any alternate win conditions present themselves, Liam is absolutely going to pounce at the opportunity, be it stalling something in the active. If Jake runs out of, different supporters like the Sadas, no ways to accelerate energies, maybe if a couple of Super Rod hit the discard pile, Liam is going to be totally aware of those different plays.
Ooh, now Jake, number one, choosing to fail the Nest Ball and not establish a backup Roaring Moon, and then going after Liam's B-Barrel, trying to deny resources just like he did against Reagan. However, I'm not sure I like this play, Chip.
It makes the prize trade a little awkward. You have to take out a one prizer at some other point in the game. And with two Charmander in play, maybe Jake feels like that is pretty likely for him to pull off.
True. There's also the Professor Turo that we see in hand for Liam to worry about. It won't help if you do a lot of damage to a Charizard, and then that damage gets immediately taken away by a Professor Turo, essentially meaning you lost a turn. It does mean Liam needs to have another Rare Candy and whatnot, but it is something to consider as Liam very quickly trying to recuperate that B-Barrel and set it up into play, which with Pidgeot, it's going to be quite easy to pull off.
Yeah, actually grabbing the Iono off of the Pidgeot, wanting to disrupt Jake as much as he can. Disruption is pretty strong against the Ancient Box deck overall, I would say, but as the game goes on, it definitely gets a little bit weaker. Even though Ancient Box draws less cards, they have really usually done a good job of thinning their deck at this point. And honestly, Jake getting 5 cards here is probably going to feel pretty fine.
Yeah, it's most of his deck at this point. Now, I do question, though, why did Jake not bench another Roaring Moon? He knows his Roaring Moons are going to go down turn after turn. Another thing why I didn't like knocking out that B-Barrel is because by taking a prize card, Charizard EX is now doing 210 damage, whereas before, by Jake not taking a knockout, this Roaring Moon would have survived that Burning Darkness.
Maybe what Jake is wanting to do is ensure that the Ancient Booster Energy Capsule goes to the discard pile, because that's what Liam's response would have been, right? Lost Vacuum, get rid of Ancient Booster Energy Capsule, and then it gets added to the Lost Zone, and that is one less of Jake's 29 cards that he'll have in the discard pile at the end game if he hopes to get over the 330 hit points of Charizard EX.
That is very true, Chip. That card in the Lost Zone would not count towards the Vengeance Fletching count. We are seeing that Bidoof get re-established very, very quickly, so Liam will be able to rely on B-Barrel at some point in the game once again.
Liam actually does have the Lost Vacuum in the hand, perhaps debating if it is worth utilizing right now. I think at this point, he's going to be able to KO anything. He's not going to have to worry about the boosted damage of the Ancient Booster Energy Capsule, so maybe it could be good to utilize that resource right now in this moment to try to limit Jake's damage output as early as possible.
Indeed. Getting rid of the active one for now, which is honestly perfectly fine. Both players with one card in the Lost Zone, not that it would matter for either. And we're going to see Liam take his second prize card of the game.
Down goes the Roaring Moon. Liam, 4 prizes remaining to Jake Ewart's 5. Jake with very few cards remaining in the deck at this point, and his draw for turn is the boss's orders now. Does he have a Darkness Energy? I don't think he does.
Yeah, I don't think he does. Does he have an Earthen Vessel left to Pokestop?
He's churned through quite a few of them, and I do believe one was prized as well. So Pokestop probably not live to be an out here.
He must have some way to draw cards, right? Might have an Explorer's Guidance as he's putting energy back into the deck. 3 of them, in fact, just to be able to get this backup KO or this backup attack. Does have 20 cards in the discard pile with the Ancient feature, so 6 away, but I really don't think it's going to be easy or possible to get 6 more in the discard pile this turn.
Yeah, not possible to get 6, but it could be possible to get 1. And if Jake is able to get 1 more in the Lost Zone, then perhaps KOing Pidgeot could be a strong play. Now, that would mean that Jake doesn't have access to his counter catchers anymore, but he does, if he uses this counter catcher, it's his last counter catcher anyway, right? So he doesn't mind going ahead on prize cards potentially at that point.
Now, did find exactly one ancient card off of this Explorer's Guidance.
But played the Explorers as well, right? So that's plus one more, too.
Yeah, there you go. That's +1. But that Professor Sada could be impactful. I think that's one of the cards you have to keep. But no, Jake favoring keeping the energy resources, which he's running dangerously low in.
That is true. And you could take a little bit of a gamble here as Jake, knowing that you have a couple of Darkness Energy in your prizes, you know, giving yourself a good chance to potentially take one. And now is the time. Jake is ready to jump ahead in the prize trade here. A one-hit KO incoming on Pidgeot EX. Vengeance Fletching, 290 damage, enough to KO the 280 HP of that Pidgeot. Jake jumps back ahead, 3 prizes remaining.
No more counter catchers available, but that's fine because now he is ahead and Liam cannot take 2 prizes this turn. So at worst, Jake is going to be tied. However, Jake definitely needs another Professor Sada, an energy attachment, and he's not guaranteed to knock out this Charizard. Still a few cards away, but this Roaring Moon going down would add 2 more to the counter.
Yeah, things are getting dangerous here for Liam. The potential of a Vengeance Fletching to deal 330 damage is ever looming. Is it something Jake will be able to pull off? That Rotom V still being in play as well, let's not forget. Could be a source of 2 easy prize cards. It is technically possible that Jake could close out this game without ever KOing a Charizard. I think that is unlikely, though, because you can't play Boss and Professor Sada in the same turn. And that is potentially going to be an issue here for Jake, is being able to play Sada turn after turn.
Yep, that's why discarding 1 is a little iffy for Jake. Jake definitely needs to play Professor Sada and have a Roaring Moon available each and every turn now that the counter catchers are gone. Jake might have to go through 2 Charizard EXs because he has no way to ghost around them, essentially playing a 7 prize card game.
Liam asking for the cards in hand and also the cards in deck. The answer is 5 for both, so 10 cards available for Jake Ewart between the hand and the deck. What is Liam going to do with this information? Is he potentially going to just make this a resource war? Make it as difficult as possible for Jake to piece together his attacks? I think the best way to do that is really to take KOs every turn, right?
Yeah, exactly. Pressure the Sada, attack the opponent's hand, and make sure that they have to play Professor Sada each and every turn. Now, in Liam's best case scenario, he wins in 4 turns, right? 3 after the current one, because he can only take 1 prize card at a time. So Jake will have a little wiggle room to finish establishing his board and get those attacks back-to-back, potentially one-shotting Charizard EX back-to-back, which is something I don't think we have seen yet, Chip.
We do see the second Charmeleon being put into play from Liam, one of the few changes that he made from towards winning EUIC list. Honestly, perhaps the only change. I think it is 1 or 2 cards different. Also, maybe mixing up the Charmander split a little bit, but honestly, that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, the Charmander probably not super relevant. The 10 extra HP can factor in against Giratina or Lost Box decks, but other than that, and you even have the... Oh, Jirachi's the other key missing piece, actually.
Yes, yeah, Jirachi the other key missing piece, but I think that was the swap for the Charmeleon, right? And kind of can accomplish the same thing in those Lost Zone matchups, ensuring that it is safe from Sableye damaging it. Now, Liam ties the prize trade back up, taking out that Roaring Moon. Will Jake be able to find the pieces to attack turn after turn? Found a pretty good set of cards here, has the Darkness Energy and also the POW Pad, but does not have the Professor Sada quite yet. He may be relying on concealed cards to get him a Sada.
I think you want to lead off with the Pokestop here. That way you thin your deck quite a bit more, and then you replenish it with the 2 Professor Sadas. Hits the boss, though, but I'm not sure he'll ever have time to use it.
That is true, yeah. It may not come up. What could matter is if he is able to 2-hit KO a Charizard and then over time also attach energy to a benched Roaring Moon. You know, you're sodding, so you'll have one extra Pokemon being built up. So there could have been an opportunity to close out the game with a boss, but not anymore unless that Pal Pad commits that supporter recovery to a boss. But then if you commit a supporter recovery option to a boss, that's one less Sada you'll have access to.
And not only that, if you Pal Pad back 2 Sadas to try and draw one guaranteed or not guaranteed, just to increase your odds of finding one, then that's 2 less cards for your total to deal that one shot on the Charizard EX. So it's a little bit dicey here for Jake. Also needs a backup Roaring Moon as there isn't one anywhere to be found on the bench. It's looking a little dicey here for our Ancient Box player.
Yes, this is certainly a perilous position. We'll see how Jake navigates it. Resources are running extremely thin. And looks like Pal Pad will place back in just the one Professor Sada's Vitality, perhaps wanting to ensure that the number of ancient cards in the discard pile remains where it is.
Indeed. 23 cards in the discard pile, needs 3 more. I think probably can rely on hitting one off of the... Oof, this is going to be close, Chip.
It is going to be close. Needs to draw the Sada here. Darkness Energy is one. Earthen Vessel the other.
Professor Sada, no backup Roaring Moon.
No backup Roaring Moon, and Jake has the Roaring Moon in the active spot, but if Liam knocks it out, Jake will be forced to promote either the Koraidon or the Radiant Greninja. He'll have to attach an energy for turn to those to retreat them. There are no switch cards in this deck. This may be the turning point here. Jake has been ahead for the majority of this game on board position, but has he run out of steam?
I think he has, Chip. That failed Nest Ball in the beginning where he chose not to bench the Roaring Moon. I think that was a little greedy on his part. I think going after the Bibarel didn't really affect anything in the game other than make his life a little bit harder, because it's okay to two-hit KO the first Charizard as you build into the one-shot as we go to game 2. Jake recognizing that he's out of options at this point.
Yeah, no resources remaining. Jake Ewart just totally out of gas, loses game number 1, and Liam Halliburton maybe gets away with one a little bit in this first game. Jake was in a pretty good spot for the majority of game number 1. Where do you think things went wrong? It looks like that's what Jake is pondering right now as well.
Yeah, based on his frown in his face, I have to say that going after the Bibarel is the most questionable aspect in this final match. Did not make much sense to me. Also missed that KO on the Rotom V, or purposely chose not to get it, which is understandable, right? But it's also a little questionable because it does make you more weak to Iono, but in the end, taking prizes becomes difficult as the game progresses because of the high HP of Charizard. So any easy prizes you can get in the beginning are an invitation, right? Or a gift.
I think I do overall like Jake's decision to not KO the Rotom, because he should know Liam's list, right? It is the Tord list. He's got the 2 copies of Professor Turo's scenario, so any damage that gets played onto a Charizard EX is definitely not guaranteed to stay there. So you can take those 2 prizes early, but if you don't have access to the counter catchers, you're not going to be taking prizes later on. Liam would utilize those Professor Turos at just the right time to ensure that doesn't happen. But here we go, game number 2. Players are getting set up. From Jake, normally with his deck, you want to choose to go second, try to be the aggressor, try to get off the quick attack. Is that true in the Charizard matchup?
I would say so, yeah. Also, Charizard really enjoys going second, right? So not only do you give yourself a chance at potentially attacking,
Look at all those Pokemon.
Yeah, the Bibarel, the 1-1 Bibarel line, right? No access to that, and Liam really prioritized it in the previous game. The rest is probably pretty all right. And for Jake, the Ancient Booster Capsule and the Earthen Vessel at the very top could make it difficult to reach for that key 330 HP damage.
Game 2 underway. Jake Ewart has chosen to go first. He opens up with that Flutter Mane. Will potentially make things awkward, and Liam Halliburton kicks us off with the Buddy Poffin. Yes, Jake choosing to go second, just like we were talking about. And now that Poffin Lets Liam check through the deck. Will check the prize cards as well. Has an opportunity to get a few Charmander into play. And I have to say, this Fluttermane being the opener for Jake could actually make things pretty awkward for Liam's turn 2 if he wanted to try to attack with a Charizard.
It could deny some abilities and stop Liam from attacking. Does have the Nest Ball to establish the Rotom. I really wish if Liam ends up winning, I want Juancho to ask him about that retreat in that first game into the Rotom, if it was on purpose or if he just forgot about it.
The Nest Ball will be played. Rotom more than likely being put onto the bench here. Sure enough, the holder of the Seal Stone comes down, and Instant Charge will draw 3 more cards to end the turn for Liam. And yeah, with that Pidgey active, normally a piece of the puzzle for these Charizard decks can be found through quick search in order to get off the attack. But if Liam rare candies into Pidgeot, well, he can't use quick search if the Pidgey is active, so he could retreat into a Charmander, but then he can't rare candy that Charmander into Charizard because then you wouldn't be able to use your ability in order to accelerate energy cards.
Yeah, so if Liam had an energy, it might have been worth it to choose to retreat now, right? To be ready for that potential situation, having to retreat twice over the course of the turns. But Liam with a very much stronger hand than the previous game after that first Instant Charge. I don't think we're going to see 2 this time around as Jake gets the Earthen Vessel rolling, discarding that Koraidon, which it feels like Koraidon is potentially a good attacker, but it's definitely just taking a backseat compared to Roaring Moon in most games I've seen.
Yes, this is without a doubt a Roaring Moon deck. Koraidon is mostly just here because it can be decent, but more often than not goes to the discard pile. It's an ancient card, right? It boosts your damage output. That is really what we care about. 2 ancient cards already down. Nest Ball being played. This will more than likely target the Roaring Moon. Actually, Radiant Greninja being found. Needing to draw some cards here for Jake. We'll see if he has the pieces to potentially pull off the attack this turn. It is possible, but it involves quite a bit. He needs to get 2 energy in the discard pile, plus attach 1 for turn. And then you have to wonder, is it even worth it? Jake wants to play this game from behind, wants to utilize his counter catchers as we've seen in game 1.
Indeed, wants to play from behind, have those counter catchers to maneuver around the Charizard EX, but it is something that did not really work out for Jake last time around. I think any attack you do into a non-rulebox Pokemon might not be worth it, so I would love to see him just smack into a Charizard EX and ask Liam to have all the pieces necessary to nullify that attack.
Jake draws 3 from the Professor Sada's Vitality. Not a full value Sada, just the 1 energy being attached. And I also wonder if Jake will even attach this second energy card. May want to hang on to it so that he can do something with concealed cards next turn.
Yeah, I mean, other than concealed cards, doesn't seem like Jake has much going for himself in his hand. I do love him potentially benching 3 Roaring Moons on turn 1. I think that's a very important thing to change from the first game where he ran out of steam towards the end of the game. You want those Roaring Moons out of the deck, even though you're not adding to your ancient counter in the discard pile. Can 2-shot the first Charizard, building up to the 1-shot of the second one. So I really love this adaptation, and it'll be on Liam to make something happen here this turn.
Jake passes back to Liam. Liam drawing for the turn, has a couple of rare candy in his hand, but I don't yet see any Stage 2 Pokemon. Arven can change that. Ultra Ball can, of course, find the Forest Sealstone. Ultra Ball can find one of those Stage 2 Pokemon, Forest Sealstone, potentially finding the other one from this Rotom.
Yeah, definitely has enough cards to be able to discard pretty freely with that Ultra Ball, one of those being Cleffa, which is a pretty fantastic Pokemon, but Liam's setup was so good that he didn't even need it at this point in time.
Yeah, Cleffa can definitely go at this point. One other card having to be discarded. And what Liam can do here is get the Charizard on the bench first, and then rare candy into the Pidgeot. Utilize that option to get both of those Stage 2s in play, be able to use both of their powerful abilities, and get around the Midnight Fluttering of the Fluttermane.
Now Liam choosing to use Pidgeot first, though. Yep, will correctly.
Still okay, yep.
Yep, all good. Can evolve into a Charizard on the bench, use its ability, retreat, and then follow that up with the Quick Search. Some a little bit of quirky sequencing that the Flutter Mane forces, but Liam, of course, being very aware of everything in play.
And Liam will be able to be aggressive in this game, knocking out the Flutter Mane, actually choosing to do it with the Pidgeot EX, trying to get value from this as an attacker. Pidgeot can knock out Flutter Mane, but cannot knock out the other ancient Pokemon that Jake has in his list. What do you think about this call?
I mean, I like it. It's a lot of resources invested, though, onto the Pidgeot, and those energies could generally get stuck here and prevent the Turo play. You know, like once you heal or you try to heal the Charizard with the Turo, you're going to need to replenish back the energy somehow. But now that these two energies are invested here, you're really stretching off that Super.
Perhaps Liam planning to Turo the Pidgeot itself. That would discard the energies and then recycle them back into the deck. These are the type of plays you can go for with this list. It's really cool. You know, the double Turo can heal these stage 2s. Really difficult to do that whenever you normally have to rare candy them back out. Liam has made that adjustment by playing 2 copies of Charmeleon. His rare candies are less important, less valuable to getting out his attackers. He can utilize them to set up multiple Pidgeot. Now, Jake is getting off to the races here. Roaring Moon ready to attack in the active spot. Energy already accelerated to the bench as well, with 2 more ancient cards hitting the discard pile. Earthen Vessel ditches the Koraidon, and now 2 more energy added to Jake's hand.
Indeed, not getting full value out of that Professor Sada once again, which is definitely what you want to do to make sure they have a string of Roaring Moon attacking back-to-back-to-back turns. Now, this Pidgeot is also going to offer a nice little cushion for Liam if he just absorbs the damage from this turn and then never brings up the Pidgeot again. That would essentially be extra HP for Charizard, and as we saw from last game, getting to that 330 damage is just really, really difficult for this deck to accomplish.
Off the Awakening Drum, Jake is able to find, I believe, the one other card he was looking for, that Ancient Booster Energy Capsule, boosting Roaring Moon up to 200 hit points. This means that Liam will not be able to knock this Pokemon out unless he uses his Lost Vacuum to remove this tool card from play.
160, yes.
Yeah, not having taken any price cards is pretty significant here. I do believe the Lost Vacuum was available for Liam. It isn't
His
priced.
prizes were all Pokemon.
Yep, prizes were all Pokemon, that's true. So in a pretty comfortable spot for Liam, like things are going as you planned, right? Double Charizard in play, you have your Pidgeot, you're about to retreat, you absorb that little bit of damage. Your opponent doesn't have the most threatening field or discard pile with not an excessive amount of ancient cards just quite yet. So you're slowly but surely getting ahead, creeping into that possible championship here.
Already has the Turo in hand, but in this position will go for the Iono, perhaps forcing Jake to find one of his 2 copies of Counter Catcher, forcing your opponent to have all the answers, as you mentioned. Has not utilized Quick Search yet, so we'll still be able to have that be a play to fetch the Lost Vacuum from the deck. Looks like that Choice Belt in the hand currently is a pretty easy target as a card to Lost Zone away.
Yep, certainly easy target. Liam also establishing the Bidoof potentially in case he's able to find the Bibarel from the prize cards.
Actually, I think I like this. Using the Buddy Poffin, get the Bidoof, like you said, if the Bibarel is taken, and now Liam can actually hit this Roaring Moon for 180 damage with the Charizard. This could be a way that Liam could sneak in a 2-prize turn by utilizing Lost Vacuum on the next turn. And Jake really only has one counterplay to that, the singular copy of Penny that is in his list.
Yep, that is true. In the end, it's 2 prizes over the course of 2 turns, right? If you get the KO now or you get it later. And that does give Jake the opportunity to promote something different in case that happens.
Sure, but then you might be able to boss his orders and KO Pokemon with energy on them. And more than taking 2 prizes in 2 turns, you're taking many of your, all of your opponent's attackers out as quickly as possible. We'll see how things develop. That's what Liam has done for now. Over on Jake's end, has a few Pokegear, also has the 4th copy of Roaring Moon. That's coming into play.
I love seeing that, getting the maximum value. Now you know you're guaranteed to have access to 4. Not necessarily all 4 will be powered up in consecutive turns, as we have seen 2 Professor Stardust being utilized. I do think there's one. Nope, that's an Explorer's Guidance at the very top.
Now, if Jake was to find his penny, do you think he should go for it right here? Take away the possibility of Liam going for that Lost Vacuum play? It would guarantee your Ancient Booster Capsule goes to the discard pile, not the Lost Zone, but it comes at a cost of losing 2 energy cards.
I think it would be a little too much and would put even more pressure in using full value Professor Stardust back to back. So not quite sure it's what I'd go for, but maybe Jake, that's what he was digging for.
Does use the Explorer's Guidance, so penny is off the table. We'll choose to keep the Fighting Energy and the Super Odd Boss's Orders going to the discard pile once again, along with Lost Vacuum and another supporter card and the Ultra Ball. Nothing else too impactful, but that boss going down, something we'll have to keep track of.
Indeed, no count. Oh, Counter Catcher is drawn, so could go after that Pigeon, which could possibly put Liam in a little bit of a pickle as we see the Counter Catchers get played.
And now Liam will have less access to potentially pulling off his Lost Vacuum play. Has the Bidoof established, but has not found the Bibarel, and I think the Bibarel still in the prize cards.
Yep, it was around the middle, I believe. So Liam's search into the deck will be very limited at this point, and if he doesn't have an Arven, maybe he won't even be able to pull off the Lost Vacuum play that you were talking about, Chip.
And that makes the decision last turn much weaker, but what a find from the top. Luminion, it is a bit of a liability. It's a 2-prize Pokemon that can be KO'd pretty easily, but it could find Arven. Liam is actually choosing to discard the Luminion here in this spot.
Oh, do you think Liam didn't realize that the Bibarel was prized? I think that's what happened here.
Liam maybe mixing up his prizes from game 1 to game 2, maybe didn't as thoroughly check his prize cards as one would think. Luminion going down means that he is going to have to effectively 2-hit KO this single prize Pokemon.
Yep, never something you want to do, and Luminion could have guaranteed that Arven, guaranteed the Lost Vacuum, and this is what I meant. Like, if you just did it last turn, right? Jake didn't even attach an energy last turn, so you're asking more for your opponent to do during their turn. Liam trying to get a little too fancy, but does have a Boss's Orders to make sure that he gets a prize this turn. I still don't like this, though, because then you're not asking Jake. The one thing you know from Jake is that he doesn't have a Darkness energy. He did not attach one last turn. I feel like that's a pretty big tell. Just take down the Pokemon that's powered up and stop your opponent from attacking you.
Liam will take out the Radiant Greninja, perhaps playing the long game here. Radiant Greninja, we've talked about how vital it is for Jake's deck. So Liam, with multiple Iono and also that 1 copy of Roxanne in his list, could be playing towards the potential of his opponent missing on a future turn. Jake now with 4 Roaring Moon in play, able to play the Explorer's Guidance. Seeing the top 6 cards of the deck, 2 will go to the hand, 4 to the discard pile. Looks like plenty of Ancient cards could be sent, but will just be the one Flutter Mane, Professor Stardust Vitality, and a Darkness Energy added to the hand.
I love this from Jake, really prioritizing, understanding that Liam's hand is now extremely weak. There's no access to the Bibarel. Could have been found just now, but it's only a 1 in 5 chance from the prize cards, and his main priority is getting those Roaring Moons powered up and ready to go to keep up the pressure. And this is why Liam, I think, really should be prioritizing taking down the powered up Pokemon as soon as he could, instead of trying to get fancy with the Lost Vacuum play.
I believe 13 cards now in Jake's discard pile, 13 Ancient cards, that is. That will be 200 damage from the Vengeance Fletching. Not enough to knock out the Charizard EX. Oh, and an interesting draw. The Prime Catcher here for Jake. Will take out the energy cards, keeps the Lost Vacuum play alive for the future. We're really committed to that. And hey, there we go. Liam takes the Bibarel from his prize card that he took. And Jake, of course, promoting back this Roaring Moon to the active spot. Do you think maybe Jake should have split his energy attachments last turn, not loaded 2 energy onto 1 Roaring Moon?
It's definitely a possibility, but I also think, your opponent doesn't have an Iono, otherwise they probably would have played it last turn, perhaps. And if you get Iono, then you might struggle to find an energy, so I think it was fine to do so. The card you're really looking for as Jake right now is that second copy of Counter Catcher. That way you can eliminate this Charizard and hopefully build to the 26 to finish off this clean Charizard in 1 hit.
And there it is in the hand right now. Second Counter Catcher can bring up the other Charizard EX. This will take the knockout, take 2 prizes for Jake. And he'll go down to just 2 prizes remaining, not before playing Pal Pad, totally aware of the fact that Liam could be aiming to Roxanne or Iono the next turn. And Boss's Orders goes back into the deck. That could be a clean way to finish off the game with Rotom V waiting on the bench.
Yeah, Jake sees the opportunity, has enough energy now powered up on the bench to be able to plan for this. The deck, I believe, is low enough to where that Rotom is in danger. Now, Liam does have the possibility to play Professor Turo to pick it up, but once again, then he wouldn't be able to play Arven in order to remove the Lost Vacuum. Does have the opportunity to find the Collapse Stadium as well, but Bibarel is not Pigeon. You can't directly search for those cards, so it's going to be on the top decks, which have been very kind for Liam.
That is true. We are potentially getting to a situation here where Liam needs to Bibarel into a 3-4 card combo potentially to keep the hope alive in this game. And Jake doing everything he can to make sure his board is safe, even putting back the Greninja into the deck with Super Rod, immediately grabbing it from there with the Nest Ball. Has energies in the deck still as well. So even if Liam goes for the Roxanne, goes for the Iono, Jake has a decent shot to draw more cards.
Definitely also has 2 Pokegears available to dig for that Boss's Order, so Jake could easily piece a win over the course of 2 turns here, taking this knockout on the Charizard. There's the Boss's Orders, so now Liam needs Arven to find the Lost Vacuum, needs Professor Turo to pick up the Rotom, needs to disrupt Jake. He can't do it all at once, Chip.
Yeah, I think for Liam here, the play will certainly be disrupt first and see if your opponent has it on the next turn. There's the Bibarel, there's the Roxanne in this hand. Also an Ultra Ball that's not able to be played just yet. The bench of the Charmander. Do you Roxanne before Bibarel? Looks like the answer is no. 3 cards being drawn. There's the Lost Vacuum. What a find for Liam Halliburton.
Not only Lost Vacuum, but also the Professor Turo, so he can actually pick up this Rotom and no need to disrupt your opponent to take away their Boss's Orders if you take it out yourself.
Well, Jake flashes the Boss's Orders, but here's the Turo, the answer to that.
The Forest also needs to go to discard pile. Yep, Jake in a precarious situation. Promoted the powered up Roaring Moon as well, so getting a little bit ahead of himself.
I think Jake potentially thought that Liam taking his prize card was the end of the turn. A little bit of a mistake there if that's the case. Liam got to take multiple prizes because of the Lost Vacuum, and now Jake with just 1 Roaring Moon in play. 2 prizes remaining, and Liam has just 1 prize card left. It's basically all in on this turn. Jake Ewart has to get to 26 ancient Pokemon in his discard pile. Otherwise, Liam Halliburton will be our champion here in Orlando. Jake viewing the deck now with the Pokegear 3.0.
There's 4, Chip. 4 ancient cards in there. Chose not to grab the Professor Sada, so might not have ways to discard them. Does choose to attach, so the preemptive promotion was not quite punishing here, but yeah, we're gonna get a count on the ancient cards. 12,
15,
18.
18.
Nope, that's not 18, so needs 8 more. Is that even possible? There's 4 more in the deck, which you can discard a lot of them potentially with the Explorer's Guidance.
If he has Ultra Ball, if he has Superior Energy Retrieval potentially remaining, Explorer's Guidance being played also adds 1 as well. The possibility could be there for Jake 7 cards remaining in the deck. He will see 6 of them here. Needs to discard multiple ancient cards. Needs another ancient card here. It's the Pokegear. The bottom card is another ancient card. He's going to be, I think, just short.
I mean,
A
the
Pokestop can discard it. Yeah.
There's
two ancients in the prize cards.
I think he might be holding too many in hand. That's going to be 3 extras, so now we're at 21. Needing 5 more. Pokestop's going to get us to 22. And Superior Retrieval can get us to 24, but how do you get the other 2? There's no Ultra Wall, there's no Earthen Vessel.
Last card, I think, is the Ancient Booster Energy Capsule.
I don't think it's going to be enough, Chip.
Jake Ewart coming up just short. That Ancient Booster Energy Capsule being placed into the Lost Zone by Liam last turn, making a bit of a difference. The last 2 prize cards being Ancient Pokemon, Ancient cards being a bit of a difference here. Jake just making sure one last time, taking one final count, maybe crossing his fingers that one more Ancient card is hiding in the deck that he did not realize, in the discard pile, I mean. And it's just going to be short. 26 is so many to get discarded.
It's so many, and I can't emphasize enough the Hero of Bibarel. This match, this final, was won by Hero Bibarel. Not only getting the Lost Vacuum, but also the Professor Turo and that crucial Prime Catcher top deck. Any of those events don't happen here, Chip. Yeah. We might be going to a Game 3. I don't think it's enough.
It's not going to be enough. And the difference maker is the Ancient Booster Energy Capsule that is in the Lost Zone.
Instead of in the discard
because
pile.
Jake would have it. He could Pokestop away the tool that's in the deck, and he would have one more in the discard pile. That would be 26 exactly. The perfect math for a KO. Jake left scratching his head, wondering if there is any way to pull this off.
I don't think so, Chip. That's 1 card. If the Earthen Vessel was available from the prizes,
it's just going to be short. Jake can feel the regional championships so close. The title right there for the taking. But 10 damage is what will separate him from coming away with the medal. And Liam Halliburton, with the grin on his face, recognizing the moment. All we have to do is have Jake say the words, and Liam Halliburton wins the Orlando Regional Championships.
Not realizing the Bibarel was prized. Not realizing the top deck of the Prime Catcher, Chip. The 2-card Bibarel. Like, Bibarel was better than Pidgeot this game, Chip. Find him exactly the 2 cards he needed.